Okay, time to get this chainsaw sharp. After I get it set up on the bench, what I generally do is mark the first and last tooth that we're going to sharpen, and then get the jig put onto the bar. And you'll notice the jig can be adjusted three different ways. The first sets the angle of the file to sharpen the tooth. The second sets the horizontal, and then the third sets the depth. So you set that down so that the file is riding down the gullet. Get a nice, good cut on that tooth. And you'll see here, this is a pretty messed up chain. It looks like I got into some rock or some dirt. So you can see that the first edge across there is rounded over, and then the point is no longer a point. It looks like, again here, it looks like I cut a little rock or something. So you can see the metal is actually pushed back on that point. So we got a lot of work to do here. So here's a quick clip of sharpening 3 teeth. You can see the file in action. You want to go ahead and start pulling it across, and you'll feel when you start that it's a little rough. You're catching certain areas of the tooth more than others, and then as you get into it and it gets sharp, you can actually kind of feel it smooth it out as you're cutting the entire face of the tooth. It'll just have a nice kind of smooth feel to it. As you go along, I like to pull rather than push. Think Japanese handsaw. And also go ahead and try to make sure you're not overloading the jig. You want to go ahead and let that jig just guide you. You're trying to just use it to follow along and not kind of overpower it. You want to push sort of back towards the back of the tooth and just slightly down. And you want to push a little bit more on the leading hand as you start your stroke, and a little more on the following hand as you finish up. Think of that tooth as a fulcrum as the file crosses it. You'll want to push a little bit less on the longer end of the file to keep it coming across straight and even. So here's an example of the tooth after it's been ground down, looking pretty good, nice and squared up. The point, it's hard to see here, but it's sharp and clear. And then I'm going for just a little bit of burr on the front edge of that tooth. That kind of tells you you've got it exactly right. The next shot here shows one that's actually the gullets, the file's down in the gullet a little bit too far, and so you're getting a larger burr than you should have. And that makes for a fragile cutting edge, so it won't stay sharp as long. Another thing that's pretty important to do is to keep the length of each tooth the same. So if you've got a caliper, you can use that, or just a small wrench here that I've got set up for the length of that tooth, and then you can check that against all the other teeth to make sure you're sharpening even. And finally, just a view of completion and a little bit of metal filings, showing that that blade's been taken care of. Hope this is helpful, and we'll talk to you next time.